All right, welcome back to Lane Switching. Today, I'm here with a very special guest. We're talking to a CFL free agent. We're talking to Nathaniel Hamlin. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate you being in the studio today. It means a lot.
Appreciate the invite, David.
Of course, no worries, no worries. And let's just start right off. Let's talk about your upbringing. Let's talk about, life before football and, early football.
Well, I guess I grew up in a sports background, playing actually hockey, soccer, played a bit of baseball, I guess, played some basketball. Football came a little bit later in life. So that started, I did get like a year in and like I was 12, I guess. And then we stopped for some reason. I just stopped and then I came back in a year. But I grew up Ottawa South, mostly playing hockey. So we'd go to, doing the tournaments, doing, stuff with my family, stuff with, very busy with that. So,
Yeah.
Besides school and sports, that was mostly life, really. Yeah.
That's dope. So how long did you play hockey?
So I started when I was like 5, till right before high school. So what is that? Like 7 years, maybe something like that. Yeah. So
And how, I guess you could say, how could you take kind of like some of the components you were learning in hockey and like transition that to another like physical contact sport in football? Was there any like transition kind of like that?
yeah, so I would say that I was probably a little too physical for hockey. I did get a lot of penalties and I was really aggressive and whatnot. So I did get to, there's different leagues, right? So if you're like a house league, you don't get to do body contact, but if you're competitive, you get to do body contact. So I was competitive. And as soon as we got to play competitive, as soon as body contact became a thing, that's when I became, it was a lot more fun to play the game. So basically, a liability, but also I was good at the same time. I was one of the best players on the team, if not the best player on the team, if at not, at times, whatever. So, being physical, getting penalties and whatnot, kind of mess your team up a little bit, but get some goals in there, you score and, get some points too. So best of both worlds. But the transition to football, it was a lot easier because then I could start playing football. You can be aggressive. You're supposed to be aggressive. It's part of the game. You can actually beat people up and not get penalized for it. So that's the part of the game that I kind of like fell in love with, especially playing defense. So, we can beat up on the offense and that's what we do. So that's my thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it was on your IG. I saw you had some hoop highlights from back in the day. When you were in high school, what did you want to do more, basketball or football?
Well, honestly, like the goal was football. I grew up in a football family. My uncles played football. My grandfather played football. My dad played football. And my uncle, my dad, and my grandfather actually all played in the CFL too. So it was it's been a football family. But basketball, there's something about basketball that's just, always have a love for basketball. You can play basketball all by yourself. You can play one-on-one. You can play with 5 guys. It doesn't matter, right? So basketball, it would have been cool to see how far I could have gone with it. But I didn't really get the coaching, or I didn't really look for the coaching in that sport. So I didn't really go farther with that. But it would have been cool to see, a dual sport athlete, or, take it farther and whatnot, try to go to university. There are guys that have played football and basketball at university, and I've seen it. So, not bad. It's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to, you played for the Ravens, you played football for the Ravens. What do you think is a harder transition? Was it harder for you to transition from high school to uni, or from uni to CFL?
Honestly, there's 2 different transitions. When you're transitioning from high school to the university level, it's a physical aspect, because you're 18 and guys are 21 to 25. So the physical aspect, sometimes you're not there when you first get in there as a rookie. So I remember getting beat up sometimes. We held our own too. We were not the best team in the league at all. We finished dead last. Yeah. But we did decent, and we had potential. But it just gave that much of a bigger drive to get bigger and stronger for the next year. So once I transitioned from that first year to the second year, I felt that it was a major difference, and okay, now I can play with these guys. Whereas I guess when you're going to the CFL, you are already that man, basically, even though you're not necessarily what other guys are. I came into the CFL, I was 21 years old, so I was still young. And guys are getting drafted at 23, 24, 25. So it was a lot different for me where I was still coming in. I was, younger and whatnot, but you come in with the strengths and then, you're fast enough. You can do all these things that other guys can do. So it's not necessarily like the transition, but I'd say the speed of the game is a lot different. I'd say that, using your brain, being smart, knowing what's going to come, what's happening, looking at film and whatnot, that's where you're going to separate yourself from other guys. So, I mean, that's mostly what you can see with like respect to all the levels there.
Yeah, for sure. And whether it was like a person on the coaching staff or just like something you developed on yourself, what do you think prepped you like what during your time as a Raven for the jump to CFL?
Well, I mean, one cool thing, I guess, I'd say it was kind of a detriment, but at the same time, it was great that everybody, when we first got to the Ravens, it was mostly rookies. So we all kind of had an opportunity and we all got an opportunity to play or test our skills, see what we had and whatnot. So playing against those older guys, it's a good test and it can like basically prepare you for more. Getting beat up kind of prepares you a little bit, right? But at the same time, if we had maybe some of these leaders that other teams have, like what you can look up to, guys that are going to the CFL in their senior year, all of a sudden you can see what they're doing. So you can learn off of them and you can see that. So, we didn't necessarily, I'd say, have that, but we were able to, as rookies, play. So, getting the experience, I'd say, prepared us for all of that. You know what I mean? So I guess best of both worlds, but it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially it's like you're such a young team. You're probably playing other, teams in the province, around the country, whatever, that are more experienced. So almost playing on a weaker team just makes you in the long term stronger because it's like once you get to a team that has all these weapons, has all these tools you're not used to, it's like just an extra bonus. It's just like super nice. And you ended up getting drafted by the BC Lions. You played for BC, played for Edmonton. I think the season got canceled, but you were supposed to play for the Red Blacks as well.
Yeah, for COVID,
yeah. Tough one. But at the end of the day, you have CFL experience. And in your pro career so far, like, what are some fond memories? What are some of your best times in the CFL?
Honestly, just I guess there's been a few, games. You play your first game. So I actually played my first game in Edmonton. It was packed house. I think Edmonton has like the biggest stadium, I'm pretty sure. Probably. So it was pretty packed. Like there was at least 60,000 people there. I don't see the crowds like that today, unfortunately, but those are memories. You come out and you're like, wow, there's a lot of people here to come see you guys play, come perform, entertainment and whatnot. So that's a cool thing. But just like going to practice every day, just seeing the fans. We have fans that pull up to our practices sometimes. You get like farmers, they'll bring you apples and stuff like that. So it's just like, sometimes there's just like little connections and you see them every day. So it's, oh, hey, how you doing? Get to know the people in the community and whatnot. So, there's so many different things. Or you're wearing your gear around town and like, you go to the Walmart or whatnot and people stop and have conversations with you and whatnot. So there's just so many different things that like just being a CFL athlete can kind of bring, so yeah.
In your professional life, I guess outside of football, like what have been the benefits to being a CFL player? What do people see on your resume, CFL? Like how are they like, oh damn, like do you think it's a level of professionalism you bring because you made it to that level? Or say you're in personal training, do you think people now look at you differently because of that's on your resume?
Honestly, yes, I would say so. I'd say having it on the resume is definitely a big bonus. Like it's a positive. To be able to say that you have relatively, I guess, made it to one of the highest divisions in football and played there. To an employer, it would say that, okay, you have resilience, you're focused on what you do, you take passion and, you take pride in what you do and everything. So in that aspect, I'd say, yeah, it's just a big bonus because if you can contribute a certain amount of effort into one thing, you could probably contribute that same amount of effort to something else. So, in personal training also, the relation between football and fitness is like, it's the same thing. Yeah. So realistically, you look at that on a resume, you can say, okay, this guy, he's been through even all the training. He's done, gone through fitness programs and stuff like that. Like, let's see what he can do. And then, you can go either do some regular personal training, just people in the office and whatnot, or you do some elite training with some athletes and whatnot. So, it definitely is a bonus. It definitely is something that I'm glad is on my resume, and just for the future and whatnot.
Most definitely.
Mhm.
And you did a lot of special teams work when you were in
Mhm.
BC and Edmonton.
Mhm.
What are some of like tough things and some things that you had to adapt and change about your game as a specialist, as someone who works special teams? Because
Mhm.
most people just think you just run at the guy and hit him as hard as you can.
Mhm.
Most people don't understand the technique.
Yeah. So as a Raven, I did special teams, but I wasn't as much of a special teamer. I did do like returns as well. So it wasn't necessarily that I was always gonna go block for somebody. But special teams has always been great. I'm gonna shout a guy out. I always had a guy returner, Tunde Adeleke. He's always been
Oh yeah, yeah.
he's the best return, like one of the best returns I've ever seen. So I've been blocking for him for a long time. So I'd say that he kind of prepared me to be able to go block for guys, because I don't stop blocking. You never know when he's gonna be down. You never know when he's gonna be in the end zone. So don't stop blocking. But I'd say, yeah, in the CFL, it's a complete different game. You're not just running around hitting each other, but at the same time, you are running around hitting each other. You want to be the more physical team on special teams. If you can be the fastest team on special teams, the most physical team, there's skill to special teams as well. Just being able to maneuver on the field and knowing and being smart, communicating with your teammates and stuff like that. There's so much going on in the game that people might not realize in the stands. But so all these things are going on, and yeah, it's a whole different game. It's an intelligent game. We're in the change room, we're in the locker room, we're going over special teams. We have a whole meeting designated to special teams. So it's not like you can just miss special teams. And for the young guys out there that don't want to do special teams, that is your way onto a CFL roster. If they can see that you can bully anybody in front of you, if they can see that you can block, you can go down and tackle, you can go do this, you can go do that. The door is wide open for you. You can do whatever you want. They're going to want you on their team no matter what. Even if you're not really, a great positional player, they're going to take you and say, well, we have designated guys for special teams and we need you to be there. So guys can make their money just playing special teams. It happens. Yeah.
For sure. And you mentioned one of your former Ravens teammates, Tunde, who I think he's on the Ticats now.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other great players, whether CFL or Ravens time? What are some great teammates you played with back in the day?
There's a few still out there in the league. Justin Howell, he plays for Ottawa.
Yeah.
We also have Nate Bahar in Ottawa and Kenny Onyeka in Ottawa as well.
Yeah.
There's great guys along the way. A lot of, obviously, like your college teammates kind of stick with you because you're kind of like, you're in there with them for the longest time. You're grinding with them, you're training camp, you're living with them, if not, whatever. You're just always there. So, the bonding there is nonetheless. I had, some more teammates like Deshaun Thelwell, Eman Aduse. So like there's a lot of other guys. I'd say in the CFL, there's still guys that I check up on from time to time. Not everybody is in Ottawa, so you can't really see everybody all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I have Dom Tremanson in BC, and he's also a coach right now. And what's it called? We got Top Boy Thompson. So he was also out in BC. So there's guys that I just vibe with and stuff like that. You can name a few other guys, but there's guys that you vibe with, and guys in the States too that you might not see again, but you want to stay connected to and stuff like that. So yeah, there's always bonds in the league, which is great.
For sure. And I had actually another CFL guy come through earlier this year, Sherrod Baltimore.
Okay.
And we were kind of talking about that transition from the American game to the Canadian game, whether they're coming from NCAA, NFL, whatever. Do you see that difficult? Do you find it's difficult for the Americans? Because you played the Canadian game your whole life. Do you find they have a hard time adjusting?
Honestly, so I would say that it would be the hardest time adjusting just because of all the motions and everything. When I was getting drafted, I also went down with a few Ravens teammates. We went to a New York Giants training camp for the rookie mini camp. So we got invited down and we went to rookie mini camp, and I was playing safety. They had we had receivers there. We had and they bring up Canadians, so they had like 10 Canadians that they brought up. And for me, adjusting to that game was difficult because the safety position was different. So it was just how you cover like the tight end or how you call something. Even in Madden, you can play Madden but I didn't really understand what they were talking about because I've never played this game. So it was completely different to me. So, I mean, with all the motion happening in the CFL, especially for DBs, I'd say that's the hardest transition. I mean, as a receiver, you can kind of pick it up and you can kind of realize like, oh, this motion thing is cool. Like I can kind of like run at the DB full speed and then just break off and he's just in the dust. You know what I mean? So I feel like receivers, they can have a little bit of fun out there if they understand, if they pick it up. I mean, in the trenches with the line, it's a little similar. I mean, a yard off is not too crazy, but I'd say for the DB position, it's definitely the learning curve. You get guys that do pick it up and you get guys that don't understand it. So, I mean, you never know. And guys will get cut just because you didn't understand it. Like you might be the best athlete there, but sorry, you didn't get it. We got to let you go. So
do you think DB is the hardest position to transition from American to Canadian?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think DB is probably, if not the hardest position. Like they talk about left tackle. It's only hard if there's a very tough end that you have to defend. Yeah. But I mean, as a DB, you're reacting all game. I mean, you deal with good receivers, great receivers, whatever. It doesn't matter. And you got to scheme to try and, break them down. You got to block them off. You got to, beat them. You got to win against them. But I mean, it's so difficult when guys can do whatever they want, when guys can run at you full speed, when guys can, honestly, there's a rule in the CFL when you can even like kind of be offside in a way as a receiver. I don't know if you've ever seen, when you're watching the game or whatever, you can kind of almost be offside. There's like a yard and a half leeway. Yeah. Sometimes the guys are just taking off down the field and all of a sudden he's 50 yards down the field and just bombs it down the field. So, I mean, I'd say DB is probably the toughest position in football. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. For sure. And speaking, right now you're a free agent, mm-hmm. There is a possibility of you getting back on the field. How do you keep yourself physically and mentally ready for that call?
I'd say that being a free agent for, I guess, some time now unfortunately, but that has prepared me to, just be prepared for any call. You know what I mean? Like if somebody called me today, I'd be excited, but I would just be like, wow, like, okay, that happened. Here comes the process that, I've done a few times. You pack your bags and you just suit up and, risk whatever and go do what you love. So, I mean, you got to stay ready. But physically, I mean, I'm always in the gym. I'm always staying physically fit. I'm always, working on my game, working on my craft on the field, doing drills and whatnot too. So it's just what I love to do. So, I mean, I'll probably just, stay physically fit for that, at least for the time being. And I also like to stay physically fit just in case I was to ever dabble into any other sport, try anything else or, try out for any other team. And yeah, basically.
For sure. And outside of football, what are you passionate about?
Outside of football, I mean, there's so many different things to be passionate about. Like in life, I do so much, but at the same time, like my big thing, I guess, is just trying new things. I love to try new things, or like if there's not really too many hobbies out there, but I'd say like on a day, I'm going to be like, okay, I want to do this today. So trying a new thing is my big hobby, but I'm trying to get into some other stuff. I mean, I up and down dabble with like cooking and stuff like that.
Cool.
I mean, I would love to learn like martial arts, like pick up boxing or something like that. So I mean, that could be something that I get into. And right now I'm kind of trying to do some like YouTube. So it's like, trying to just dabble in a few different things, pick up a few different skills and whatnot. So I mean, that's kind of what I'm into, just learning and, doing that.
For sure. And I think a lot of people post the football life have a hard time making that transition, mm-hmm. have a hard time stepping out of that comfort zone. So for you to have that comfort is, it's a level of maturity, and not just that, it's just like CFL and football and any physical, even labor jobs, being in that forever, mm-hmm. your body is just not going to have that wear and tear. You're just not going to be able to do that. And a lot of guys are just not ready for that transition. Mm-hmm. They're just never ready for that to mm-hmm. end. So being able for that to end and being, ready, willing, and able to pick up something new is huge. In the football world, do you ever see yourself maybe potentially going into coaching?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've done coaching already. I've done multiple levels. When I started, I guess I was still playing football. Like I went back to mm-hmm. my high school, helped out the guys there. We did a junior Ravens camp also. So we had multiple age groups come through, girls and boys. That was pretty fun. And I mean, just other things too. I've also helped out with the Ottawa Sooners recently.
Cool.
That's a pretty good squad there, and they got some like good guys that you can work with there. Good connections just all around. And I mean, yeah, just there's a few other teams that have kind of like hit me up, trying to maybe even do some high school coaching in the fall or something like that. So we'll see where life's headed. And high school or university and stuff like that. Recently went back to university. We had a little like banquet or whatever for the guys that played with like in my year.
Yeah.
And we got to talk to the new coaches. So they're new coaches that realistically I wasn't there with. There was, I guess, maybe one still, but it's cool to get to know these guys. And if they need anything, or we could work something out where I could be involved. I did another camp with them actually recently after the banquet. So I mean, yeah, you never know. Volunteer work or
whatever.
Mhm.
Keeping it going. And for the future, your football career, your personal trainer career, whatever you have in store, what can we expect next for Nathaniel Hamlin?
Honestly, see, I'm the type of person where what I look at is, while you're trying to be a free agent, while you're trying to be a football player, I mean, if you look at it in a sense, somebody else is kind of controlling your destiny.
Yeah.
So I'd say that what's next for me is that I'm trying to control my destiny. I'm not trying to have, I mean, along the way, you always have somebody or something that you might have to depend on. That's life. That's just what happens. But I mean, to be as independent as possible, to, go as big as I can with fitness, with training, with like YouTube, with a channel, with whatever it is, So that's kind of what I'm looking at doing. Just get into, whatever flows basically. So that's what's about to happen.
That's super dope. And for the
Mhm.
people, you talk about social media, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Aaron Nates on Instagram, and on YouTube. You can find me on my channel at Nate Does It Different.
Dope. And we'll plug that all in the description.
Mhm.
That'll all be there for the people to find out. That was the Nathaniel Hamlin interview. I'm DF2. That's my guy, Nathaniel Hamlin. Peace, y'all.